Gonzaga Nation SI continues bringing the coverage of all Gonzaga content, whether it's Gonzaga based or whether it's future and upcoming opponents. Today's we're going to focus on the opponent for what's supposed to be Thursday. Unfortunately, as we record this on Monday, just got the news that this game is postponed again due to COVID. USF Dons radio play-by-play man, Pat Olson. Pat, thanks for joining. Some disappointing news that this game isn't going to be played this week. How are you taking it?
Well, I guess it kind of just goes on and on. I know in the first weekend of West Coast Conference play, the entire men's and women's slate was wiped out by COVID, 17 combined games. So as we now head into week 2, I guess it's not looking good. Hopefully this will pass through and everybody can get back to playing basketball, because I know USF is anxious to play. I'm certainly Mark Few and Gonzaga are ready to get going again.
Yeah, you're right. Every single game, the West Coast Conference men's and women's slate was postponed. It'll be interesting to see how those games get rescheduled. In particular, this game that you and I were going to talk about is one that I was really excited, interested to call on the TV side, because USF's off to a tremendous start, 13-1. I believe the last time I checked, 32 or 34 in the net, about that same number in the Ken Palm. You guys are having a tremendous year. What do you attribute that to?
Well, I think the fifth-year senior rule, USF has gotten old, mature. You know, a guy like Jamari Bouye, without being able to come back for a fifth year, he's gone from the program. The Dons get a transfer, an immediate starting center in Yaoyin Misalski, who comes from within the conference from San Diego. He's not part of this team without that additional year. So I think that additional year has helped a lot of the, non-Power 5 schools, because they've had that ability to keep guys. The high majors, the Power 5 conferences have tended to see those guys graduate and jump off to the NBA or a pro career. And so, it's a mature team. It has, a lot of the elements with a strong backcourt, a very good three-point shooting team, a deep club. I think the depth has proven to be a big part of the success of USF to this point at 13-1.
You're obviously an insider to the USF program. I'm sure you get a chance to talk extensively with Coach Golden. Do you get the sense that this is a bit of a surprise even to the coaching staff that they're sitting at 13-1?
I don't know, in all honesty, that they anticipated being 13-1, but they felt they had a good group. When they sat together, in October, when they made their, summer recruits, and they did get some guys on that fifth-year senior plan, like Patrick Tape, who comes in from Duke. So they seem to fill a lot of the holes. And Jamari Bouye has made it very clear the reason he came back. 2 reasons. One, Coach Golden, who you just alluded to, the relationship there. But really, more importantly, I think for JB, the opportunity to play in March Madness. They've made that a clear goal from the get-go. They felt they had the kind of team. While maybe no one predicted 13-1, I think they thought they had the kind of club that could be a strong net team. They had put together the right kind of schedule with teams like Davidson on the road at Arizona State, UAB, the Blazers, a top 50 team, Fresno State, a good game to have on the schedule. They felt if they could get some of those games, Coach Golden's an analytics guy, that they had an opportunity this year. I think that to be an NCAA tournament team, I don't think is a big shock or a surprise to them at this point. Maybe 13-1, a little bit better than some had anticipated, but still, I don't think it's beyond the realm where they're at right now. I think they expected that they had a pretty good club. I did when I saw the roster in the summer. I had high hopes. At first I thought, oh boy, if Jamari Bouye leaves, this could be a long year. And it flipped the other way. Bouye stayed, and then suddenly Misalski, signs on, and I'm like, holy cow, this team has gone from maybe being a 6th, 7th place team to suddenly being able to contend for second. And that's been exciting. It's been an exciting year to this point.
Yeah, I've been a fan of Bouye's game over the last couple of years. I think he's a tremendously skilled guard. who is a little more athletic than I think he gets credit for, at least nationally.
Yeah.
Where have you seen the biggest growth in his game this year? I'm guessing from an outsider's perspective, it might be that leadership and take charge role. What do you see?
Well, I think the biggest step up this year is he's become more of a dangerous 3-point shooter. He's been athletic, as you allude to, and the athleticism, I think, is not as nationally known. Those in the West Coast Conference know who he is. And there was a highlight from a play against Fresno State that went around TikTok or one of the social media sites where he came up and did this shoulder move. And the Fresno State guard who was guarding him, a pretty good defender, he just fell, like he dropped to the floor. And he made the guy look like, with all due respect, he made it look like he was clearly a level above. And that's him athletically. But I think the improvement this year has been his ability to make not just the 3-point shot, but the step back three, the three in transition where he's dribbling up and there's no one underneath the basket and he pulls up and he starts walking backwards. The shot's gone down. I mean, his 3-point percentage this year has been in the mid 40s. He's been around 43, 44, 45%. He's had 5 games this year where he's made 4 3-pointers in a game. And so I think that's a kind of a step up for him. He's an interesting young man because he was not highly touted coming out of high school. I think USF was his only Division I ride offer. And he's been really loyal to that. Here's a guy that could have last year jumped. He could have grabbed his 5th year somewhere else. He was holding his degree. He could have allegedly showcased himself, right? And we've seen some instances where that hasn't worked out for young players. I think he made the right decision. He's in a top 40 program, at least to this point, right? And he's going to get himself showcased. Hopefully this game will get rescheduled when he plays Gonzaga twice, that'll get some national attention, right? Especially if he has a good game in one of the 2 matchups, when he gets a couple cracks at St. Mary's, BYU, our league, because of, Gonzaga, because of Mark Few, really, I feel the whole league is elevated. It's gotten better, and Gonzaga gets a lot of credit for that. And USF is a case of a team that's improved itself to try and get up in that conversation with Gonzaga, BYU, St. Mary's. And Jamari Bouye has had a lot to do with that. But I think this year in particular, yes, his leadership, but, the Steph Curry dagger 3 has become a big part of his game.
Yeah, it's definitely fun to watch him play this year. He's one of the underrated sleepers that I think is, if USF continues to play well, will gain some more national attention. But Todd Golden in his 3rd year is doing a tremendous job. He was an interesting story to keep an eye on a couple of years ago because he was the youngest head coach in Division I when he took over. You mentioned his focus on analytics, and a lot of that is due to his work with Kyle Smith, who's now at Washington State. Where do you see the biggest growth in Todd Golden as a coach in 3 years?
I think, the biggest growth is certainly game preparation. I think even he would admit, that in the first year, he came on the post-game show because he does the pregame with me before every ball game. And then afterwards, he comes on every post-game. And we also do a weekly get-together, a once-a-week radio show. And he was quite honest in saying, I could use some growth here, growth there. But I think that he's put together an excellent staff. Chris Gerlifson, who came in from the University of Hawaii, where, he'd been like the associate head coach. He's the associate head coach now, big time recruiter. I think he has the right elements around him, but I think he certainly is, because I think his relationship with the players is a big part of why he was retained. I think that when Kyle Smith, you mentioned him going to Washington State, when that happened, the job was open. It went to Coach Golden, young guy, as you alluded to, right? Not a lot of experience, certainly. However, I think if he had not been given the job and he had left, you would have seen a mass exodus of USF players off the roster. I think him staying stabilized the program, and I think we have certainly seen the growth of him as an in-game coach, a halftime adjustment coach, those sorts of things, because the analytics has always been there. He's huge on analytics, as you alluded to.
Well, Pat, I appreciate it. Thank you for your time. Unfortunately, the game won't be played this week. Fingers crossed it gets rescheduled, and hopefully we will connect again when Gonzaga is about to take on USF down in one of my favorite gyms in college basketball. So thanks again for joining.
Good to see you, and we'll look forward to seeing you down the line.